Paul Gregory's encounter with Lee Harvey Oswald. Narrator: in the annals of history, there are often unexpected connections that can shape the course of events. In this fascinating story, we delve into the unlikely encounter between Paul Gregory and Lee Harvey Oswald. Those alive when John F. Kennedy was assassinated on November 22, 1963, remember where they were and what they were doing when they heard the news the president had been shot. For Hoover fellow Paul Gregory, then a 21-year-old college student at the University of Oklahoma, the day became particularly memorable, life-changing, even when he saw television news footage of Kennedy's killer, Lee Harvey Oswald, being escorted into police headquarters. "I know that guy," he said to himself, confused and in disbelief. Gregory had gotten to know Oswald and his Russian wife Marina, whom he had taken Russian lessons with. For much of the summer of 1962, Gregory had been, outside of Lee's family, the couple's only friend. Gregory's new book, The Oswalds, An Untold Account of Marina and Lee Diversion Books, 2022, details a story he has kept largely private, with the exception of speaking to the authorities at the time. Here, Stanford News talks to Gregory about what he knew of Oswald and how the assassination has captivated conspiracy theorists for over 60 years. Gregory is a research fellow at the Hoover Institution and is a scholar of Soviet and Russian economics. After the assassination, you and your family were able to remain beneath the radar. In their public records, the Secret Service referred to you as a known associate of Lee Harvey Oswald. Why share your story now? My father and I were immediately known to the Secret Service by the night of the assassination. We did not want our association with a Marine deserter and avowed communist known in our community. Decades after the assassination, I still have no desire to tell my story, even among friends and colleagues. It was only when I became convinced that my account adds to the limited historical record did I sit down and write. How did you get to know the Oswalds? When Lee and Marina returned to Fort Worth in June of 1962, Lee thought he could get a job using his Russian language skills. My father, born in Siberia, taught Russian at the local library. Lee came to visit my father in his office to get a certificate of language proficiency. Lee invited my father to visit him and Marina at his brother's house. As a Russian speaker, far from perfect, I went along and met Lee and Marina. Shortly thereafter, we visited them in their duplex, and we agreed that I would come regularly for language lessons from Marina, who spoke no English whatsoever. Thus began regular meetings until mid-September. Much has been written and said about Oswald. How do your experiences shed new light on who he was and what he was like? I show that Oswald had all the characteristics to kill a major political figure: the means, the motive, and the soul of a killer. In the period from Oswald's return to Texas with his wife Marina to their move to Dallas, I was the only one who broke through the cocoon in which Lee had Marina living. I saw them on a regular basis for conversation, shopping, and driving around Fort Worth. I observed Lee as a manipulative loner who concealed himself from others and guarded the strict boundaries he erected around his troubled marriage with Marina. Similarly, Lee maintained a barrier of secrecy around himself. He had the habit of deflecting questions about himself. They were his business and not for others to know. By inviting Lee and Marina to our house to introduce Marina to other Russians living in Dallas, we unwittingly ended Marina's isolation, to Lee's distress. There are several theories about who killed JFK, including the belief that Oswald did not do it. Why is JFK's murder shrouded in so much mystery? Why do people think that Oswald was not his killer? We cannot believe that history can be changed by a random set of circumstances. It's hard for people to accept that a little guy, Lee's mother referred to him as the boy, of no known accomplishments could kill the most guarded person in America on his own. This leaves two explanations for JFK's murder. Either Oswald was a patsy or he was a willing cog in a well-organized conspiracy in which he was an unlikely follower. There is simply no way he could have pulled this off on his own, conspiracy theorists would say. Judging by the most recent polls, the American public still buys this story. What do you think was Oswald's motive for assassinating JFK? Oswald dreamed of going into the history books where he had learned from his mother that he belonged. He wished to pay back society for not recognizing his exceptionalism. He wanted to punish Marina for her ridicule of his ideas and her scorn of his manhood. Is there anything else you would like to add? It is a shame that so few have carefully researched the material in the voluminous Warren Report, a culmination of findings from the Commission, chaired by then Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Earl Warren, to investigate the assassination, to understand the evidence which prompted the sole gunman conclusion. Instead, critics glom onto bits and pieces, and minor contradictions to build mountains out of molehills. Among the multitude of conspiracy theories is even one that places my father and me among the conspirators. The JFK assassination marks an end of national innocence, namely our readiness to accept the word of our most distinguished public figures. On the day the Warren Commission issued its report to the American people, 2/3 of the public believed its findings. Now that figure has dropped to 1/3. Gunman? A conspirator? A patsy? Here are 8 things about Oswald you might not have known. 1. He served in the Marines, where his nickname was Oswaldovich. Oswald took an early interest in socialism after picking up a leaflet about the coming execution of Ethel and Julius Rosenberg, who had been convicted of spying for Russia. I was looking for a key to my environment, and then I discovered socialist literature, Oswald wrote in his diary. I had to dig for my books in the back of dusty shelves of libraries. Despite his socialist leanings, Oswald enlisted in the Marines and in 1957 was stationed in Atsugi, Japan. While there, he earned the nickname Oswaldovich. As his fellow Marine, Owen Dejanovich, explained to Frontline. 2. Oswald attempted suicide in Russia. In 1959, Oswald traveled to Moscow, in hopes of becoming a Soviet citizen. I want citizenship because I am a communist and a worker, he wrote in his request for citizenship. I have lived in a decadent capitalist society where the workers are slaves. When his request was denied, Oswald became despondent. I am shocked. My dreams, he wrote in what he called his historic diary. My fawns, sick, dreams are shattered, I decide to end it. Soak wrist, sick, in cold water to numb the pain. Then slash my left wrist. Oswald was found unconscious in his bathtub shortly after he finished his diary entry and then rushed to a local hospital. Days later, Russian officials changed course and allowed him to stay in the country. 3. He once improvised the role of a killer. In 1960, Oswald moved to Minsk and became friends with a group of college students interested in learning English. One of the students, Ernst Teitovitz, made tape recordings of Oswald in order to study his southern accent. He had Oswald read passages from Shakespeare and Hemingway, as well as improvise mock dialogues. In one recording, Teitovitz interviewed Oswald, who was playing the part of a serial killer. In the exchange, which Teitovitz played for Frontline in the below excerpt from Who Was Lee Harvey Oswald? Oswald is asked about his most recent killing. 4. His alias was Alec J Heidel. By 1962, Oswald was back in the United States and working in a photo lab in downtown Dallas. Using the lab's photo equipment, he began to forge a new identity, including a selective service card, in the name of Alec J Heidel. Oswald went on to open a post office box, where he would have mail sent under both his birth name, as well as his alias. Among the publications he received were The Worker, the newspaper of the American Communist Party, as well as The Militant, the paper of the Socialist Workers' Party. Following the Kennedy assassination, the FBI would trace the purchase of a rifle found inside the Texas school book depository to an A. Heidel. However, when asked by the Dallas police whether he had ever used the name, Oswald said no. According to author Priscilla McMillan, Oswald's wife Marina once asked him if he chose the name Heidel because of its resemblance to Fidel, as in Castro. Oswald was embarrassed to be caught out, and he told her to shut up, McMillan told Frontline. 5. He was linked to an assassination attempt before JFK. 7 months before the Kennedy assassination, Oswald allegedly fired into the home of an ultra-right-wing Army general named Edwin Walker. The bullet, which missed Walker, was linked to Oswald's ammunition after the Kennedy assassination. Gerald Posner, the author of Case Closed, recounted what's known about Oswald's actions. 6. His feelings about JFK were mixed. According to an account published in the New York Times by Paul Gregory, a friend of Oswald's, Lee and Marina kept a copy of Time magazine featuring John F. Kennedy as its Man of the Year prominently displayed in their home. Lee liked Kennedy, according to Priscilla McMillan, a friend of Oswald's wife and the author of Marina and Lee. He liked him in civil rights. He disliked him for the Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba. But insofar as he spoke about Kennedy, it was to praise him. Investigative journalist Gerald Posner also told Frontline that he did not believe Oswald held any hatred for Kennedy. What he did hate was the system and what Kennedy stood for, said Posner. He despised America. He despised capitalism. When he eventually had the opportunity to strike against Kennedy, it was that symbol of the system that he was going after. 7. He once considered hijacking a plane to Cuba. According to McMillan, Oswald wanted to help train Castro's army in Cuba, but because he could not secure a visa, he was forced to devise an alternative plan. As McMillan told Frontline. 8. Oswald told Dallas police that nobody's going to shoot at me. The day he was killed by Jack Ruby, Oswald dismissed the idea that his life might be in danger. That's according to James Lavelle, a former member of the Dallas police force who helped escort Oswald from his cell the morning of the shooting. I put the handcuffs on him, Lavelle told Frontline, and in the process of doing that, I more in jest kind of said, Lee, if anybody shoots at you, I hope they're as good a shot as you are, meaning, of course, that they'd hit him and not me. And he kind of laughed and he said, oh, you're being melodramatic, or something to that effect. Nobody's going to shoot at me. Minutes later, Oswald was dead. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories that challenge our understanding of the world.